So in our if section is changed, we'll call our query item here. We'll pass in section name, and in our else statement here, we call query API with our self, well, we call it section name as well here. But those are two different variables. This one is coming from user defaults, and this one is coming from our default technology name. No reason to have self there. In here, on 61, no reason for self. How does it know? Because we have the outside global variable name, section name. In here, it's local scope to this particular if let statement, but outside here is global scope to the outside function. All right. Not if, let's see, not if we come in here and the names are the same. Not if we come in here and the names are the same, it won't query the API. Like in the else statement, if we were supposed to have an else statement here, if we were supposed to have an else here, it's not going to hit the API. Right? We look at the user default value. If there is a new value, we go ahead and we query that new value. If there's not a new value, actually, let's see. Fed stories. Over here too, we could actually capture it because we'll actually have that in the view up here, for example. And if it's the same, we won't even query. Right? So we'll have the same block of code here. So if, let's run it and refactor it first, okay? Because there's some refactoring we need to do there, okay? Okay, so fed stories is being called in view.load. Let us refactor this a little bit here and do view will appear. View will appear, super dot view will appear, and call fed stories here, and remove that fed stories in the view.load. So in view will appear, we call fed stories. We query our user defaults. Is there a value in user defaults? If there is a value, we grab that value and we make the API request. Where's what? View will appear is after view.load.
You just added it?
Yeah, it's after view.load.
Okay, so just so that we are all on the same page, we have a variable to capture that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Inside of our initial fetch stories, we have it one in a string, like the parameter is the same in the string, right? We're saying if there is a value saved in user defaults to the specific key, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then if the section name isn't equal to what we already have saved, query the API for this section name that's coming in.
Yep.
Else, query the API for what we already have.
Else, query the API for what we already have, yes. But here, we could actually stop this from happening if the section's names are the same.
Okay.
Right?
So
in reality, we will refactor this. Let's get it to work first, and we'll refactor it to put it in the did set. Okay? All right. Because we don't want to do in the else here every time we come in, it's going to reload anyway. We don't want that to happen either.
Right.
So we'll refactor it, okay? Part of like live coding here is I'm thinking of one thing, I will refactor it, but we'll refactor it after we get point A happening, okay? Okay.
Would you be okay like taking a break for like 10 minutes while she sets up like a TV that we can stream to the projector?
We okay.
Okay, you sure?
Yeah.
Not for now.
Yeah, we okay. Like, time is going there. We're good. Thank you, Daphne.
We can leave it there.
Yeah, thank you so much.
You want me to leave it here?
Yeah, just leave it here.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
If you're not using it, I need it back. now.
Okay, cool. All right, let's test this out and we'll refactor the code. Everybody with me? Okay? All right, so fed stories is getting called in view will appear. and we're querying our user defaults, we should have a value in our user defaults. So put a breakpoint at line 60. Put a breakpoint at line 60. And put a breakpoint at line 64. Put a breakpoint at line 60 and put one at line 64, and we will come back and refactor the code. But for now, let's just test what we have. So run the app. Right now, I'm on line 60 because, as I said before, we should have a value in our user defaults, correct? Let's actually query that value by doing PO section name. Mine is business, right? Maybe you chose something else, but mine says business. Everybody? Let's follow the paper trail here. Let us go to fetch stories, jump to definition for fetch stories, jump to definition for fetch stories, and we get here. We have a section. But look at this. Oh, we actually updated this too. Great. If you still have a hard-coded New York region in your API key, this is not going to work. If you have, for example, here, let's open that up a little bit. Over here where it says V2, everybody sees version 2. If you have, like, for example, New York region here like this, that's hard-coded in. It's a hard-coded in section. So please update your section to use string interpolation with the section name. Yulia, does yours show that? Okay, great. So let's run the app again if you did not have that. So again, it's in Query API. I keep going. Aha, that's the error you were talking about, mister. Right? Okay, we have an error here for business. Apparently, multimedia is coming out as a nil object. Okay, so we need to go update our model. Okay, let's go update our model. If you have business, you're going to get a JSON error. Let's go update our model. Let's go over to our model. And let's update our model here. Do we all see where it says multimedia on line 34? Make it an optional. Build, there should probably be errors places. So if you build, put a question mark, optional, right? Build, there's one error. Let's follow that error. Right here, we have an error because this guy is optional. So back in our get articles image URL, let's just use a guard statement to say multimedia equal to multimedia else simply return empty string. And at this point, our error should be no longer. Yes? In results.
Like after multimedia before filter, and then after, no, right there. In that function, like where it says
Results equal 55 on here. I mean, you could put a question mark there, but we know our whole data object was being nil, so we start off with the actual model. Oh, you mean like right here on the filter here?
Yeah.
I rather do it on the top level on my multimedia object, because if it's nil, I'm not even going to come in there.
No, I did it up there and it's still private down there, so question mark.
You did it up there like us, like what we did here. So you want to use like a guard to unwrap it, like if it exists. The only time it will go to line 55 is if it exists. Okay? All right, let's run the app again with business, and let's see what we have. Okay, with business, wow, everything just like works there already. Okay, with business, we should not have business news, right? Yes? I mean, I was waiting for some errors here. This looks like business news to me. Let's go ahead and change it to say books or food. Food is good. Go back to news feed. Dining news. I'll take dining news. That's fine.
Wait, can you go back
can I go back to, what have we done so far? So we changed the model, right? Because we had an error with business. So we said model now is optional for multimedia, right? Luba, you have a question? 4.4, client error. Aaron, double check Luba's computer. She has a 4.4 client error on her computer. Yeah. Double check your Postman to make sure your API key still works. Double check Postman, make sure it still works there. Okay, so everybody's good with the model. The model is good, right? We did one update for the model, or 2 updates. We made multimedia optional, and we unwrapped our multimedia variable, right? Going back to our top stories, news feed here. In our news feed, we have our Fed stories changing the name of the section we're trying to query. Everybody, right? And we validated it works because we're able to change our picker view to example health, and it goes to business, which is not health. What they paid to, let's see what's happening with our section name here. Where am I getting? You getting one for home? 4.4 for home. Let's see what's happening. That's fine. Let's see what's happening. If you're getting an error, just follow exactly what I'm doing. Let's see what's happening in Postman, right? So go to your API client. Go to your API client, and right on line 20, put a breakpoint. And let's see what's happening. Let's see what the query looks like. So on line 20, put a breakpoint and run, well, we'd have to run the app again. But let's see, which one? Just home, right? Or was there a different one? Was it just home? Okay, let's get back to home. So I have a breakpoint and I change it to home. And right where my breakpoint is, I'll put a PO and see what I get. So PO, URL. Let's see this. We might have to lowercase this, maybe. I go to Postman and verify if it does work. So okay, it doesn't work, right? Guys, right? Exactly what I did, I took that URL, I went to Postman, and home doesn't give me any values, right? So at this point, I could just rip out home from my array, okay? Is there anyone else that's giving us a 4.4 error? Was it just home? Okay, so simply let's go back to our app and remove home from our array. So go back to Settings View Controller. Go back to Settings View Controller and simply remove home from the array. Simply remove home from the array. Mel? Good? Simply remove home from the array. And run again. And let's see, do we get travel? Does travel work? 4.4. Direct, oh, it still has home. Haha. Funny. Let's just delete the app. If you still have home, delete the app and run the app again. Okay, so now we have back to our technology news. I go to change to, say, example, movies. I go to movies. I go back, and I have movies, right? That makes sense. It's Oscars. Oscars was yesterday. I'm sorry?
My tile is not explained.
Your tile?
Yeah, can you go back to your logic? So, all right, so after you save it to...
1 second. Anybody else not getting their API to change or to update? Greg? Not getting your API to update? Okay, let's troubleshoot together. Let's see what we have. Go back to our news feed, right? In our news feed, this is the code we have. We have our Fed stories. We say query the user defaults. If there is a value, go ahead and use that value to make a new API request. And again, we said we could refactor this, but let's get it to work first, then we'll refactor it. Okay, this is all we did. We said fetch stories, find out if there's a new result in our user defaults. If there is, go ahead and use it. If it's different from what we had before, then we took basically our API call, we took it out into its own function. Right? We didn't change anything with the API call itself. And make sure that your endpoint URL is interpolating the section name. You did that? Good? Results? Scroll up here. You good? Okay.
But my picker is not staying at, like, it's not staying at the value. He has to just set.
It's not staying at the value.
Yeah, like, you know, like when you move into business, like it should stay at business, like when I go back to the settings page. I'll have to put that in here.
Oh yeah, that's extra. Yeah. First, let's get it to work first, and then, right? Which one is not populating? Sunday review. What's Sunday review? Is it the same issue? So just take that out, Sunday review. We just tested like simple data points here. Does sports work? Does sports give you sports? Okay, so just take out Sunday review. Technology does not give technology? Technology. Okay. Cool? Again, the picker view is working for data we get, right? But those that aren't working, we could remove them. Cool? Guys, how we doing? How we doing here? Kelby, what's not working in your part?
I'm not loading anything.
You're not loading anything. Do you want to load something? Your view will appear. Are you calling fetch stories? Okay, next step. Fetch stories, are you checking user defaults? Do you have breakpoints in user defaults there? It's not going into the user defaults values. Are you setting your user defaults in your settings? Put breakpoints there in your settings view controller. Breakpoints is the way we get out of problems. Okay. Yes, I saw a hand.
Well, no, not necessarily user defaults.
User defaults. Say that again, sorry. No, I'm not in the settings. In settings, we saved user defaults in here, in the did select row at. Do you have that? Shania, did you get yours to populate? Okay. 3 o'clock. Okay.
Alex, is the wheel supposed to, when you load it again, supposed to appear on the word, or is it just supposed to be the query that you search for?
Are you talking about user defaults? Settings?
Yes.
Yeah, settings ideally should be back on the where you saved last.
I mean, for the picture though, when I reload it,
Right now it doesn't work because we haven't done the code for it,
okay.
but it should implement that. I'll leave that for you guys to fix actually, because it's also review. You would just query the same way, query user defaults and go to that index.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was just curious to make sure.
Okay. Query API.
Did you ever make your variable equal to the user default?
Where am I? 1 second. 1 second, one at a time. You want to look at the query API? Right? Wait, Eric is typing some stuff out. I have a variable called section name.
Right, do you ever make section name equal to what the user?
Where do I set it? I should set it here. If it's different, I set it here.
Because that was the title, because my title's not changing, how come your title's changing?
Okay, let's come back and let's go forward. If it's different, you will change it on 61. Okay? Okay. We added one line to set our section name on 61. I added 61. On 61, if the section name is different, we go ahead and we reset it to whatever we got from user defaults. Right? And keep in mind right here, let's see. Okay. We'll do refactoring later, but for now, this is good. Anybody not getting theirs to be populated? Amini, you have a question? Again, we could capture else there. The else, like, we don't have to query it all the time when it comes in. I could put an if statement there, if it changed on this one, because this one still queries all the time. Right? Any other questions before we move on? Yeah. No, we could refactor this. Like, we could refactor this to use did set and only query the API when it got set. Yeah. But that's where we started first. Like, ideally, I probably want to refactor that code. Yeah, yeah. Okay, did everybody get the code to work? Okay, let's go ahead and refactor this to use did set here. Okay. Let's go refactor this. Let's go up to our section name. Our section name right here. And do a did set here and refactor this. Okay?
Is the dead set on the section name, right? Oh yeah, we never.
Yeah, we're refactoring this right now. Okay? First we got it to work, now we refactor it. So on our section name, when this gets changed, I'll go ahead and query my API. What's it called? Query API. Query API. Okay, let us refactor this to use our did set on our section name. So when my section name comes in, what's the first thing I want to do here? Section name, I want to query this guy, right? I'll refactor this later. I just don't want to keep us here for too long. We'll refactor this later to use a did set, okay? I don't want to go back and forth too much here. So first off, we have our fetch stories querying user defaults. If it has a new string, it queries the string. Luba on line 65, we're setting section name to the current section name if we have something from user defaults. Oh, setting it to come back and check here. So if I set it to technology, for example, and I go to my picker view and I change it to business, it gets reset, right? But if, I'm sorry? It resets where though? It's not going to reset unless you set it explicitly. But in order to check to see if the two values are the same, you want to capture that value. Right? So if I set business, for example, and if business is equal to business, it does not come in here and reset the value. And it doesn't query the API. It won't requery the API if the values are the same. If business equal to business, right? It doesn't come in here, right? Everybody sees that, right? So if business is not equal to business, it doesn't come in here. It doesn't reset my API. If it is different, it will come in here and make a new query and update my section name. Go ahead.
Did you ever use the software structure variable? Such stories?
Which one? So,
Inside the function variable?
what line number?
Line 57.
57.
Did you ever have to use the section variable? Like the default?
This one?
Yeah.
In our case, no, because we'll override it because we pass in a new value here. Right? So in actuality, we don't need it. Right? Does that make sense? Okay, it gets overwritten anyway.
Oh yeah, because of the verbally.
Exactly. Exactly. Cool.
We should keep that in so that when it starts off.
You could keep it in for now, just because it starts off as technology, unless you change it later. Cool? Luba, to go back to that question there, if business is equal to business, I do not come in my if statement. Yes. If I did not change the picker view. That's when the user goes to settings, they're like, oh, I don't want to change my picker from business. I go back to fetch stories, right? There's still a value in user defaults, but it won't query the API again. That line here? It changes it if the values are different. So if I come in here and business name and technology, for example, right? In that case, business is not equal to tech, for example, right? It will come in here and it will override the value of section name. It will set it to a new value of section name. Section name will become business. Anybody else not feel comfortable with line 61 there? Like, is line 61 a bit vague with what we're doing? Okay? Go ahead, Amini. Okay. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I don't want to, it could get refactored very easily. Okay. Cool. We'll take a break and we'll refactor it, but before we take a break, we will jump and do, let's see what we have next happening here. So we've done user defaults. Let's do animation and gestures, and we'll come back to search last. Yes? I will come back and refactor it after we come back from break. Okay? Does yours work for now? Do you call fetch stories in your view up here? Do you call query API like we have? In the fetch stories function. When you change your picker, what happens? Okay. Delete your app. Do me a favor. Delete the app, like from the simulator. I think one of the values got stored that was not available. Maybe home, probably. So delete the app and run it again. Cool. Okay, great. Let us now go over to what you said, animations, gestures. Okay, great. Let us now go to our app. Click on saved articles. We have no saved articles here. Save some article. Whenever the internet decides, doesn't really matter. Save an article. We have an article saved. And we want to be able to segue from that cell. So we want to be able to segue from that cell. We want to be able to segue from that cell, and we also want to be able to long press on the cell and have it animate such that it animates with a transition to show an image on the other side of it. Okay, so there's a few things we want to do here. But for now, let's first segue over to our detail controller. So I'm in my saved articles, view controller, saved articles, view controller. Did delete, no. I want to go to my, okay. We want to navigate over to where it says UI collection view delegate flow layout. We have our size for item. We also want to have, what method am I implementing when the user selects an item? I want to go ahead and make a programmable segue. What method am I implementing here? Did select row, right? So did select row, we'll implement did select row here. Or did select item. In my did select item, I want to programmatically set up a segue. In the saved articles view collection, view controller. Okay, I want to segue over to my detail controller. I first need to get an instance of it. So here we will call it detail view controller. What is it called? Detail, article detail. So article detail controller. I first get an instance of it. Then I want to give it whatever it depends on. I want to use dependency injection and give it whatever it depends on. What does that detail view depend on? What does it need? I want to go over to the detail view controller. From when I click on one of my article cells, I want to navigate over to the detail view controller. Yes, sir? It needs a what? It needs the article, right? So it needs the article. So detail view controller needs an article. How do we get an article, Luba? How do we get an article here? Okay, so article we get from saved articles, index path.row, and now we have an article. We could pass it over to the detail view. What else does it need? What else does it need? Persistence, right? So Kelby says it needs persistence here. And persistence, we have one here. And again, to do here, post-assessment, we will be using initializers here. As opposed to passing, or as opposed to injecting individual properties. So keep in mind, looking forward or looking in the future, we'll be using initializers for what we just did here, as opposed to injecting individual properties. All those individual properties have to be public, and this is not the best encapsulation methods. Yes, Eric.
Can you explain why you did data?
Why does it need it? In our case here, if we don't pass it over, it will crash, guaranteed. Because right now, our detail view controller expects a data persistence. Because when I go click on save something, what works with that? When I say save something, what does the saving? Yeah, what does the saving part? What does the creating part? When I say create new item. The what? Yeah, but what saves? What object saves that article? Data persistence. And if I don't pass it over, it will be nil, and it will crash. Yes. Like if I'm segueing to a detail controller, and I do not pass a data persistence as well, it will crash. right? Very similar to when we segued from our newsfeed controller, we passed the data persistence.
That's what I was just about to ask. Is it because it's coming from a different place?
Yes,
Okay.
exactly.
So every time it's coming from a different place, it has to pass its data.
The information you need.
So, but it's going to the same, alright, so now in this case, technically, we're segueing over to the detail controller from the.
Saved articles
saved
controller.
articles
Yes,
right?
yes.
But when we get to it.
When we get to it, it will be as if it was the same.
It's the same, but we shouldn't be allowing it to be able to be saved again, so.
That's a different lecture altogether. I mean, the data persistence has. Tiffany's question was, how do we prevent duplicates? Right? The data persistence class already has a method on it to catch duplicates. So you just have to implement that method. If we go over to my docs here, if we go over to my document for this data persistence thing here, I just updated the document over the weekend. So here, if you want to check for a particular item, for example, let me zoom that up. So here, that's your question, Tiffany. So if you do not want to save something over and over again, you implement this method here, has item been saved.
And then you pass in the item.
That's it, and it gives you a Boolean value. Okay? Everybody, if you want to check for duplicates, it's already written.
Okay, and an easy way out would also be that if you're segueing from, well, I mean, it's not really easy way out, but you would have to give identifiers. If you were segueing from a specific identity, you would make the bookmark button to be disabled.
No. You want to use a method like this one, where you could set the bookmark based on what, is it saved? If it's saved, fill the bookmark.
Right.
If it's not saved, empty bookmark. And you cannot resave an item. But as far as like assessment goes, that's fine here. But for your own purposes and going forward, the method is written for that. Cool? Does that answer the question? Minnie, next question?
Yeah, I was gonna say, could we do, like, check if the data persistence of variables in nil, and just disable that button? The
You want to be how the user should be able to toggle save and unsave, right? Right? So if you remove the data persistence, right, you still have to add it again later. So the best way is to have the method checking if that thing has been saved. Because the user wants to toggle on and off. Right? Yes?
So the reason that we're, just one more time, the reason that we're moving the data from something to another is so we don't want to instantiate it twice.
Yes, you don't want to essentially twice because now you break up the whole delegation pattern and you only want to have one instance of our data persistence so that our saved article listens to that one instance.
Why is that better? Like I understand how to do it, I think, but why?
If you don't pass the same instance, the delegate is listening to a different instance than the new one you created will be a different one from the one originally listening by the saved articles
So we'll be
controller.
able to load that data,
Exactly.
even though it's getting it, won't it be looking for the same like document name?
If it's looking for the same document name, that's fine, it will work. But if you're trying to have your delegate work on it, automatically update your collection view, it won't work.
I guess I'm just trying to figure out like what are the benefits of this way of having it versus like just loading it and saving it with different data.
Passing the instance is preferred better because you're working with one instance.
And that's,
Especially because we have our delegate working with the saved article.
is that like a speed thing? Is that like
It's a design pattern. Design pattern.
Okay.
Because we're working with the delegate already, so we don't want to break that up.
Okay.
If we introduce a new instance, it breaks up the whole pattern. Yes, Eric?
Just to make sure, the one instance is the one that
Yes, exactly. So the one instance is the one from the top controller. And that's the only one we've been using in that entire app.
and you just pass that from there on.
Yep. How are we doing here? Good? Okay. All right, so the document for data persistence is right here, right? It shows us how to do everything we are doing so far, right? How to create. You say data persistence, well, that's creating the actual instance. But saving, you save item. I need to update this. It's create item. Load item, you just load the items. That's like getting data. Delete, we did that already. remove all, there's also a remove all if you want to empty out your whole documents. And this one, handy if you want to avoid duplicates. Okay? All right, I'm not even going to get into this one, but I wrote that here for documentation purposes. But yeah, it's kind of saying what's happening here. Let's go back to code. All right, so what are we doing here? We have our article, we set up our instance of our detailed view controller, and keep in mind, please, best practices is to have an initializer on our detailed view controller, right? Not what we're doing here currently. Everybody, right? So by the time we hit like mid unit 5, we'll be writing initializers for our view controllers, okay? The same way we wrote an initializer for our empty view. Empty view says I need a title and I need a message. I cannot set myself up without that, okay? Same thing will apply to all our view controllers. We'll be having initializers on them, and if it needs an article, that's going to be part of the initializer. If it needs a data persistence, that'll also be part of the initializer, so we're not accidentally forgetting to pass things. Does that make sense? But I'm not going to introduce that now. I'm tempted to, but I'm not. Because we'll be like, oh my God, I gotta get this thing for tomorrow. Yes, you could go ahead and push. Cool? All right, but you haven't successfully passed data, have you? Successfully segued?
No,
So you
we're
cannot,
doing a whole bunch of-
but you can push. I pushed lunchtime, I did push already. All right, remind app, right, for the pushing. So Tiffany was talking about committing, right? So commit frequently. Okay, let's verify this actually works before we push. So run the app.
What about the navigation?
Oh, we haven't pushed anything. This is not prepared for segue. Good, guys. You guys are ready for tomorrow. Awesome. What about the navigation thing? Very good. So here we'll say navigation. Are we in a navigation thing, though? How do we know? Because you checked? Okay, very good. We got May's confidence here. So detail navigation controller dot push. What are we pushing? We're pushing a detail VC, and it's that. Now we could test. Now we could test it. And we also testing the projector. Okay, where are we? I'm in the save articles. I click on the many lives of Mark Jacobs, and that segues correctly. It shows the correct article. And yes, I could save again, but we haven't, right? This is like a to-do. Luba could do this. We have the, 3 lines of code, and we get the thing to happen, right? All right, cool, great. So this is done. We could push now. So we could commit. We could commit, and we could put in some statement here saying setup push segue on cell in saved article. Okay? So Tiff, right? Your commit is right here. It's ready. It's going. And it got pushed. Push. Okay, cool. So we pushed successfully. How are we doing? We ready for break, or we could go on? What's that? It will come back. Better. That thing is. I'm not gonna do anything right now, though. Come on, keep right there. Okay, next step. Let's implement a long press. Does everybody code work up to date? Is everybody's code up to date? Eric, what is the error? Empty state? What happened to it? Can you comment out your empty state for now? Yeah, don't use it for now. Move forward and then we'll come back to it. Cool. Everybody else code is up to date. We able to push? Yes? All right. Let us go work on long press animation. I want to add a long press on my saved article cell. Let's all go ahead and click on Save Article Cell. All right, let's all go on Saved Article Cell, and I want to add in a long press gesture on my cell. Okay? Okay.
Wait, along with the more button?
Along with the more button. The more button is a tap on the cell itself, but I want to have a gesture on the cell itself, the cell. The cell. Okay. We're going to make an animation like what I slacked out on the weekend with the paging, not the paging, but the transition animation where it flips and then it shows, yeah, and it shows an image. Cool? So this is what we're after here.
Even though when you click on it, it still takes you there.
We also need to know animations, right? So, all right, let's add that in here. So again, I'm in my saved article cell. I am creating some long press gesture of UI long press gesture. Okay, so let gesture equal to UI long press gesture and return gesture. So we're adding a long press gesture to the cell. Okay? And that's the save article cell. So next up, let's create a method for it. I'll create a method right below our comment in it here. It's going to be add objective C. It's a private function. Did long press. And argument gesture UI long press gesture. And for now, we'll say if gesture dot state equal to began or gesture dot state equal to changed, we'll simply return and for now we'll have a print statement here. Saying long pressed. Okay, and let us set that up in our gesture button here. Oh, go back down? Okay. If I'm moving and you're still typing, just raise your hands, and then I will stop. So last week we did a long press, right? And now we just want to see a print statement. That's all we want to see right now. We'll add more code into it later, but for now, when the gesture itself just began or it's changed, we'll print out long pressed. Cool? And the gesture began when you long press on it and it activates whatever amount of seconds it takes. That's when it in the began state. And the change state is if you keep moving that gesture. Okay? And there's a cancel state, and that's it, right? I think. Cool? But we haven't done any logic. We just want to test. Does it actually activate? So now let's go up and add it in our gesture code. So gesture here, we'll say add gesture or add target, sorry. Target to self, and my action is selector did long press.
And for this one,
We don't need two different sides. No, we're actually just going to be manipulating the alpha value.
no, we don't need touch up and stuff.
Oh, no. That one will add the gesture to the object itself. Very good question. Okay. Are we good? Great. So let's go down to our command init here, right here, and we'll add the gesture here. So we'll say add gesture. And again, we're adding the gesture to the cell itself. So long press gesture. I'm in the command init, and I added the gesture to the cell itself. We don't need to say is user interaction enabled because a view by itself listens to long presses and it's enabled by default, as opposed to UI image view or UI label, right? All right.
If you want to put in just a section inside,
You could make a view in there, like you mean like in part of the cell.
like as in just the image.
You could do that. You could just add it to the image as opposed to the whole cell.
Put it inside the function for it.
Yeah, so do we have an image? Yeah, we have an image here. So you would put the gesture on the image. So you would say image view dot add gesture. Cool? But here we say in add gesture to the cell itself. So this is very similar to just saying like self here. Cool? Very good. All right, let's run it. And I go to my saved article cell, I click on it. It's not working here. Is it? What is my label? Oh, I know probably why here. So my, my label is on my cell. So I need to, on my label, say is user interaction enabled. Okay? So the label is the first thing, the label covers my cell. And the label itself is not user interaction enabled, so it cannot listen to any changes. So I need to set on my label is user interaction enabled. We have a label here. Title, label, article, label, is user interaction enabled equal to true. I do it in common init, yeah. This does not work here. We have a next problem here. Okay.
Still not working.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Is it because you have it as if it's equal to the next or is it because the next?
Does it get printed? Let's see. Yeah, that's why. We have no print statement here. Print.
You have it inside of the.
Yeah, so it never gets there. So outside gesture. And here, if it began, actually it should have printed here.
Alex,
Yes, go ahead.
is this set anything?
Oh, I know why. That's a good question here, also for me. Let's see. I think I probably made a big mistake there, big boo-boo. Okay, who solves this boo-boo for me here? Why isn't it getting called? Yours works because you maybe did something without even seeing that point there. Anybody sees why ours is not working? That's a IA question there. Post-interview, post-assessment. What's that?
Nothing, I'm just waiting to you to say
For me?
what's for somebody. I'm waiting for somebody.
Anybody know why our gesture is not getting fired?
Is self
Why isn't, well, not me. I Mini.
Put the more button press.
Everything is good with our
Oh, sorry, never mind.
everything is good with our gesture, right? Our gesture get added correctly. We set it up somewhat correctly. The method is correct. We have print statements there. That should get fired. But the gesture itself is not getting fired. What is the gesture's value here? Let's see. Run your app. Put a breakpoint in the comment in it. Run your app. And let's PO our long press gesture. What value is it here? Target no, that's not good. Action is good. Okay? Let us see how we set it up, guys. Back in our setup here for the long press, this is not a lazy var, right? It's not a lazy var, it's nil. It adds a nil gesture. Or the target here is nil. Let's see if that works here. So long press and long press works.
So wait, because you didn't make it lazy.
Because I didn't make it lazy, it attempts to add the target. The target is nil,
Oh.
right?
It doesn't add it
Until it's initialized. Until it's initialized. So May, you had lazy, correct? So May has lazy by default. So May's was working already. But if you forget to do lazy here, right? Hopefully not real-time coding, but if you forget to do lazy, your action, your add target will not work because it's a nil object. That object hasn't gotten set yet, right? Our view controller hasn't got set, not view controller. Our view isn't rendered yet. It isn't initialized yet. It's nil. Target is nil. Okay? Guys, tomorrow, right? We see this here? We good?
But why is it pressed so many times?
We'll fix that as we keep going. First step, does it get called? Okay? All right. Everybody got their long press to get printed? Okay, let's keep going here. All right. Move all those print statements here. We are good with those. What do we want to do? So, when we long press, when the press began, we want to basically make some sort of animation with our view. We want to animate the view such that it flips and it changes the content. So we want to change it from text to an image. So this is what we're after here. Go ahead.
Now I'm gonna ask you, is it one of those situations where you have to just create a horizontal view and only have it in the zero and
Something like that, but we'll just do it with alpha values.
put a view on top of that?
It's going to be, yeah, the views will be the same, but we'll just change it in the alpha values. So by default, the image won't show because the alpha will be 0. When we flip it, we'll change the alpha in the animation to 1. And then we'll change the label to 0. Cool? Okay, great. Let us go ahead and set up we have an image view somewhere. We don't have an image view. Guys, let's pay attention here. Okay, so we have our more button. We have our article title. Let's add an image view. So public lazy var news image view is of type UI image view. Let image view equal to UI image view. Return image view. What's the content mode for this? We'll just say content mode equal to content mode. We'll say fill for now, aspect fill. Okay. Let's give it a default value for now. So image view dot image equal to UI image. System name. We'll say photo. Let's test it first, right? And alpha, for now, we'll say alpha is 1, which is the default value for alpha. And alpha is how much of that image you see. The number goes from 0 to 1. 1 is fully seen on screen, full visibility. 0 is invisibility or hidden. Next, we'll go over to our common init, not common init. We'll go down to setup constraints for our image view. Alpha 1.
Should we put it above the configure cell or below the configure cell?
You could put it below our last constraints function. Cool? Hands up if you're still typing. Okay. So let's go set up, what's that?
You said hands up.
Yeah, hands up if you're still typing. You just type it and then I stop. You're funny. You're so funny. Private function setup image view constraints. You're so funny, man. Add subview, news image view. And news image view, we'll make it take up the entire view. Well, not the entire view. Well, it doesn't matter. View that translates auto resize and mask to false. Next, we'll say news image view dot top anchor constraint to oh yes. Thank you, madam. Activate. And news image view dot top anchor equal to constraint equal to multiplier. No. Just want it to be equal to the top. And we'll just do this 3 times. Uno, dos, tres. And we say top, lead in here. Lead in. We say bottom. Bottom. We say trailing. Trailing. Okay? Are you guys okay after we do the image view to take a short break and come back? Like go till 5, right? So that we have no ambiguities heading into tomorrow?
We can go to 6, and then we'll have everything that we need for tomorrow.
Wow, look at you. You have everything you want for tomorrow already. If I was stop right now.
Well, we are just coming here and having the eyeball for it. I'll be there till 2 hours.
Jokes. Okay, setup image view constraints. Make sure to call your setup constraints in our common init here. Setup image view constraints. Is it? Yes, we just made everything equal. And one other thing, let's see. For the article title, let's make it invisible for now. So alpha equal to 0. And at minimum, we should see our photo being rendered with a photo, okay, at minimum. So let's run it and confirm that. Again, we test in frequently because there's a lot of code we just wrote, right? Yes. 1 second, let me just confirm on my end. Before I do anything, just do this and I'll show the constraints. So clip to bounds, set to true. Clip to bounds, set to true. So that the photo doesn't go beyond the bounds. You want to see the constraints? Okay, remember clip to bounds here? It keeps the image within the frame. Okay, go back to our setup image. Cool? Okay, run it again. Okay, so at minimum we have our image, correct? Okay, one other thing we could probably fix here is the top constraint. Make the top constraint such that it's the bottom of our, yeah, exactly. A step ahead. So constraint here, the button is called more button dot bottom. No. That's not what I want. Equal to more button dot bottom. Run it again. And click on it. Great, this is better. We have access to our more button, we have our image. Cool? All right. Everybody has the image being rendered? Okay. Let us now go back up and edit our alpha for our label. Just remove that. Alpha for the image. Keep that at 0 for default here. So the default alpha for our image is 0. We'll add in a variable, a constant here. Well, a variable. We'll say is showing image. Set to false. So we'll use that variable basically to keep the state, to know what's being shown. When the image is being shown, we toggle it to true, vice versa. So we have some sort of state variable to keep track. Okay? Now let's go back to our long press here. So in my long press, right after my if statement, I'll first go ahead and toggle my is showing image. And toggle, remember toggle what it does? So if it was true, it does what? Turn to false, right? And if it was false, it does what? Turn to true. So far so good? Toggle.
Can we fix it as to that it will only do like once, like the moment?
Yeah, it's going to work. The minute it first begins, it's just going to return. Okay? It also needs to listen for long presses still because it needs to change the image again. So it cannot just like not go ahead and continue. Okay? So the toggle is going to be the thing to take care of it. So here we have our toggle. Next, do we have an image kit? No, it doesn't. We don't need it. So news image view dot get image. Get image. I need an image URL. I need an image URL. For my image URL, I will say guard let current article equal to current, what's it called? Not current article, else return. And here we'll say current article, dot get image URL. What do we want there? Jumbo? No. Normal? Did we get normal? We'll find out. Remember we wrote this utility function to get an image URL, right? So we use it to get one of the images, whether it be a jumbo image, whether it be a thumbnail image, or a normal image. Who wants to give me the size on a normal image? In Postman, it shows that size. What size is it? In Postman for our data multimedia object, what's the normal size? Anybody?
152 by 100.
Okay, that's fine. That's decent. We could keep that here. Thank you, sir. Okay, so we toggle image. We have image, and here we'll switch on the image. So switch on result. Switch on result, case failure. We'll put in some default image. We'll come back to this. And case success, we have an image. Okay? We have an image. So remember, we're looking for this. Antonio's looking for this. If you have a closure, is looking for weak self here. So make sure to break the retain cycles. News image view dot image equal to image.
We don't have to dispatch.
Oh yes, we do. I'm telling you, you're ready. I don't know what you're worrying about. So make sure to dispatch here. Dispatch queue dot main dot async. Very good, Tiffany. And we'll have an animate function. Private function animate. And we'll call our animate function here, self.animate. Our animate function will decide what it shows and what it doesn't show because it has the state. It has is showing image, right? So if is showing image is true, it will show the image and the alpha will be 1. If is showing image is false, the alpha will be 0 and the label will be 1. Everybody with me? All right, cool. What animation are we doing? Transition. Okay, so here we'll keep track of a duration number. Duration is how long the animation is. Some double. Also a default of 1 second. Seconds. Great. So if is showing is true, do something else, do something else. For our animation, we'll say UI view dot transition from or transition with, transition from is one view to the next. We're using the same view, so transition with. That's not me, that's Xcode. Autocomplete, transition with, right? And press enter, yes? And what are we transitioning from? Self, the cell itself. And duration, we pass in duration here. Options, we'll come back to options. Animation, the actual block of animation. And completion, we say nil for now. And we take a stop here. So the actual thing I want to animate is the cell. I want to animate the cell itself. So what do I pass in? For the with argument, I pass in self. Self is the cell. Everybody? Cool? For our transition options, we'll say flip from left or flip from right, sorry. So in our options array, we'll say transition from right. Okay? And what animations are we performing here? So we'll say self dot. So in this case, image is showing. So we want to make sure that the news image alpha is what? What's the alpha here? 1. And what is the alpha of my article?
0.
Cool? Great.
We don't need, well, this is inside of the closure.
We don't need, what's the question?
We don't need self.
Not in that particular static function provided by Swift. Very similar to dispatch queue, right?
But in dispatch queue, we do use it yourself. Yes, we do.
No, I don't have it in my code base.
So, wait.
Go back to
For
it.
the news image, I get image, you didn't use it yourself?
No, it's not captured. References are not captured in those functions.
So then what did you just ask if we were breaking,
In the, no, dispatch queue, wait, not here, not for this one. We didn't do it for this one. We did it for disclosure.
oh, that's what.
Yeah. But disclosure is not a network request. All right, great. So let us just grab this code we just wrote here and dump it in the else statement. And transition is the same. Here we'll do it from the left side. And alpha is what? In this case, it's 0, and alpha is 1. Cool. Are we calling animate? Make sure to call animate. We call animate in here, in the success block for the image. In the success block for the image, where you say switch on result type. Tested? Did you call it? Go ahead. Did you run it? Run it, test it out.
You see, my thing is moving too fast by the time I press it.
The simulator is not the ideal thing to really test long press. The All right.
So, what's that thing that we did before where we, once it began, it stopped? Because I'm pressing it a million times.
Long press it, release it, and it's going to change for you. Right? Does our more button still work? Good. Long press, release.
But how do I long press and release by the time I push it?
Okay, so how are we doing with the animation here? Are we able to long press on it and see the change? Yes, sir. Scroll up. Like here? All right. We did a bunch of things. We'll take a short break. We'll come back. I want to refactor we'll refactor some code, and then we'll do search. That's the last thing we do. Right? Search, and we're done. Actually, we'll do search first, and then if there's room for anything else, we'll do that after. But we'll first do search, because right now we cannot search. Who's searching? Anybody searching yet? Should we leave that as a task? We know how to do search. Nobody search for a whole unit.
The search that you're doing is not querying the API.
No, just local. Not local, but
The title.
yeah.
That's what
How we doing? Everybody got the animation to work here? Okay.
Thumbs up.
All right, cool. So we'll take a break here, and we'll come back and wrap it up.